Okay, Becky has some marbles. Chris has 2 times as many marbles as Becky. Dan has 7 more marbles than Chris, and they all have a total of 57 marbles. Dan says, if I give some marbles to Becky, each of us will have the same number of marbles. Is Dan correct? Okay, this is clearly a question where you have to convert English into maths, right? So with these sort of questions, always start with the word let, because we're going to invent our own variables. Let the number of marbles that Becky has equal B. Let the number of marbles that Becky has equal B. Okay? Chris has some marbles, so we do the same thing. Let the number, you can use hashtag as shorthand for number, that's okay. Let the number of marbles that Chris has equals C. And guess what the letter for Dan is going to be? Let the number of marbles that Dan has equal D. Okay, so we've introduced our own variables and there's 3 of them, and we have to work out what B, C and D are, which means we need at least 3 equations. Okay, you need at least the same number of equations as you have variables. So because we need to find 3 things, if you're in an exam, in a question, and you've only got 2 equations, but you're trying to find 3 variables, it can't be done. Somewhere in the question, there will be information in which you can extract a 3rd equation from. Okay? They'll always give you enough information for you to get at least 3 equations if there's 3 unknowns. Okay, so we've got to extract 3 equations from the information. Let's see. Becky has some marbles. Can't do anything with that. Chris has 2 times as many marbles as Becky. Right, we're going to convert that into maths. Chris has 2 times as many marbles as Becky. Let's change colour. So, Chris has more marbles than Becky. He's got twice as many. So, Chris has 2 times as many marbles as Becky. Well, that's it. That's that sentence converted into maths. The way to check it is like this. Okay, just think about it. Just use common sense. Chris has 2 times as many marbles as Becky, so Chris has more marbles. It's easy to get the 2 on the wrong side, to write B equals 2C or 2C equals B. But this is correct because if Becky has 5 marbles, right, Chris has twice as many. He must have 10. So just put in the numbers. Becky has 5, 2 times 5 is 10. Chris has more. It's correct. Okay, next. Dan has 7 more marbles than Chris. Okay? Dan, he has 7 more marbles. So again, Dan has more marbles, which means the 7 must go on this side. C plus 7. However many marbles Chris has, you add 7 to that, and you get the number of marbles Dan has. Let's check it. Let's put in some numbers. Let's say Chris has 5 marbles. Dan has 7 more marbles than Chris. So Dan should have more marbles. Chris has 5 marbles. 5 plus 7 is 12. Dan has more marbles. It's correct. Okay, they have a total of 57 marbles. Well, that means that B plus C plus D equals 57. Okay, we've done it. We've converted these 3 sentences into 3 equations. 3 equations, 3 unknowns. We can solve it. So we've just got to solve these 3 equations. Well, we've got C in terms of B and D in terms of C. So I think we should put everything in terms of C, because we can convert that b into a c with this equation. We can convert that d into a c with this equation. Then everything's in terms of c. So, what does this equation become? Well, from this equation, b is c over 2. Okay, so we'll put that in here. So b is c over 2 plus c, leave that alone. Right, plus d. Well, don't need to do anything to that equation. We'll just sub in that. D is c plus 7. And that all equals 57. Okay? Subtract 7 from both sides to get that 7 over there. And we get c over 2 plus c equals 50. Okay? Therefore, c over 2 plus c, that's a total of 2.5 c's, which is 5 over 2c. So therefore, 5 over 2c equals 50. Multiply both sides by 2. 2 times that, 2 times that. Boom, boom. Therefore, 5c equals 100. Divide both sides by 5. Boom, boom. Therefore, c equals 20. Okay, so Chris has 20 marbles. C is 20. Okay, pretty easy to work out the rest then. If c is 20, and 2 times 10 is 20, so b is 10. And c is 20, d is 20 plus 7, so d is 27. There we go. So, what did Dan claim? If I give some marbles to Becky, each of us will have the same number of marbles. Okay, is it possible for Dan, who has 27 marbles, to give some to Becky so they all end up with the same number? Well, he's not giving any to Chris, so the only way for them to end up with the same number is for all of them to end up with 20, because Chris's number isn't changing. The only way for Dan to end up with 20 marbles is for him to give 7 to Becky. They both have 20, but she would only have 17. It's impossible. So, is Dan correct? No. Dan should have kept his mouth shut and just stuck to playing marbles.